2 minutes, y'all, before we start the live show. If you're late, watch the replay. But it's always better to be involved, get your questions answered, and we can make it relevant and real. All right, all right. We got a few people joining. Give it a couple more seconds. Wait for more people to join the live broadcast. We are going to be talking about Bitcoin today. If you haven't heard about it, you've been living under a rock. But it's definitely some urgency involved. I was going to wait to start this live broadcast at a later date, but we can't wait anymore. We cannot wait anymore. The money is here to be made. Let's give it a couple more seconds. And if you are here and you're able to, definitely drop a message in the chat. Let me know that you are excited, where you're from, what your name is. Most of these people I already know, but it'd be great to see who has joined already. And secondly, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I will be doing more of these as well as some more recaps on a regular basis. Just letting folks know to go ahead and hop in. Drop a message in the chat. Let me know who is here. All right, all right. We got Bill Keys. We got Isaac. These are brothers from separate groups. They're both near and dear to my heart. We all about to get rich together. That is the goal for tonight's call, to put a plan of action in place so that not only are you comfortable with taking these steps, but you are convicted. Yeah. So to put it lightly, I started out on my journey. Good to see you, Brian. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Thank you. I started out on my journey into Bitcoin last year around the summertime. And it started out with reading books, watching videos. Good to see you, Ross. Watching videos, reading books, YouTube's, tweets, the whole nine. I was everywhere consuming this. And once it clicked in my brain what it was that was happening with this asset, I couldn't sleep. There were nights on end where I'm just up thinking about how can I get more Bitcoin. Now, this was before, if you guys know, before the ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs that are created by Fidelity, BlackRock, VanEck, ARC 21 shares. There's about 11 different ETFs before they even launched. That was in January of this year. So I was like, I have to get as much Bitcoin as possible before the institutions start buying it all up for themselves. Now, when I got into Bitcoin, it was at $25,000. I don't know if you guys have price checked it recently, but Bitcoin is currently priced at $70,000. So the amount of growth potential in this asset is unlike anything anyone else has ever seen. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to tell you about why I do what I do. We're going to go into some of the concepts. Tonight is not going to be a deep dive into everything. It's going to be a high level, overarching look at it so you get your feet wet, get excited enough to do some of your own work, and get off of zero. Get off of zero means get off of zero Satoshis. If you are familiar, a Satoshi, good to see you, Frederick. A Satoshi is a penny, is what the penny is to a dollar. A Satoshi is to a Bitcoin. Every Bitcoin has 100 million Satoshis. So it is basically infinitely divisible. One Bitcoin. Get off of zero, guys. If you do not own Bitcoin right now, by the end of this week, you should own some Bitcoin. If you do own Bitcoin, by the end of this week, you should own more. Literally. All right. So let's get started. We got a few people in the chat. It looks like we have about 7 of the individuals that I have invited. Everybody here is someone that I hold dear, is a part of an organization that I want to see succeed. So, and I am pretty sure, unless you've invited somebody else, we are all Black men. So let's know that the mission is to get wealthy as a community. All right. Power Over Money, which is the YouTube channel that you guys are currently in, is a wealth financial literacy channel. It's meant to teach people how to use money the right way. I literally went and got a financial services license so that I could teach people to do it the right way. BYOBTC is our weekly series. It's going to happen every Wednesday night for at least till the end of the year, where we're going to be discussing Bitcoin, any of the market trends, things that are happening, what to do next, anything to look out for. So today is the very first in our BYOBTC, Bring Your Own BTC weekly series. My name is Eric Fondren. I am the founder of Power Over Money, and my goal is to bring like-minded men together so that we can all build undeniable wealth so that our progeny can focus on value creation and not value consumption. All right. And if you're like me, in the past 2 years, ever since the pandemic, you've had multiple side hustles. I started a trucking business. I have gone into financial services. I've tried to do here and there. I've tried to get into real estate. I've been looking at cash value life insurance, the whole nine, and all of it is meant so that I can try and generate a higher amount of wealth. The problem with all of this is that not only am I chasing activities that don't align with what I like to do, but they are all priced in dollars. So there's only 2 rules for this situation. A, do the work, right? You're going to have to learn some things. You're going to have to do some financial work. You're going to have to rejigger your budget so you can point some dollars at this investment. You're going to have to let your family know, hey, you got to trust me on what it is you're doing. You're going to have to do the work. I'm not teaching anybody. We can set up one-on-ones if you really want to get down and dirty with it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to drag you over the intellectual line to understand what Bitcoin is and why it is literally going to change your bloodline if you do it the right way. Second rule to BYOBTC, stack sats. That is a term that Bitcoiners use. It means stack Satoshis. It means buy and accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. Those are the only 2 rules. Do the work and stack sats. So to start off, we are going to just briefly watch a quick video. Now, I told you I wouldn't teach anybody, but most people don't necessarily know what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin. And this is just a brief video that's going to help you understand it. we should
Money is easy to make, society begins to break.
So, how do we make money that's easy to carry but hard to create?
Well, one solution is Bitcoin. Back in 2008, I became fed up with government money, with the corruption, the manipulation, so I created a digital currency. Digital money that can be sent directly from one person to another without any bank or government involved. It's hard money.
It's the hardest money ever invented!
Bitcoin is very hard to make more of. Each new coin gets added to the supply only after a computer works very hard to solve a math problem, where there's no shortcut and solving it costs a lot of energy and time.
Okay, but if it's on a computer, can't I just...
Not with Bitcoin. You see, there's a public record of every Bitcoin ever created. It's called the blockchain. It's like a puzzle, and each Bitcoin has its own unique shape. And because everyone has a copy of the public record, if someone tries to fake a Bitcoin, it won't fit the puzzle and will be rejected by the network before anyone can use it. That's why Bitcoin is so safe from criminals and the government.
You said criminals twice.
And unlike dollars, which can be printed endlessly, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's almost impossible to inflate. The only way to get it is to earn it or buy it from someone who has.
Aha!
No offense, but if you control Bitcoin, couldn't you manipulate it just like the government?
I don't control it. No one person does. It's controlled by a public network of Bitcoin users that anyone can join. So if someone wanted to change something in Bitcoin's code, they would need to get the majority of the millions of Bitcoin users to agree to it, or the change doesn't happen. And when has the majority of us agreed on anything?
One click!
All right. So that's just the basics of what Bitcoin is. And I don't want to spend too much time on the how and why of what Bitcoin is. I really want to talk about the value proposition, because at the end of the day, we're here to make money. We're here to build wealth so that our family and friends don't have to deal with the exact same issues that we dealt with while build wealth. Exactly what has happened in the past, and then compare that to what is going to be happening in the future. And the reason why I started today as the start of this weekly series is because on November 5th, there's going to be a US election. And that US election almost always is followed by an parabolic and exponential increase in the value of Bitcoin. Meaning today, in a week, Bitcoin could be $80,000. It could be $90,000. It could be $100,000. And it's not going to come back for a very long time to this price point. Bitcoin went up 3,175%. Its price was initially on the left-hand side. You can see it all the way over here. It was initially $709 per Bitcoin on November 2016. By a year, Bitcoin was at $19,000. Okay. Now, Bitcoin has a cycle. It has a 4-year cycle. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. But every time it goes up, it makes a new floor. The next cycle, all the way up to, and that's a change of about 434%. This cycle, we are currently sitting at $72,000. And even if we only go up 200%, one Bitcoin will be worth $215,000. Now let's put that into a little bit more of a context. And please, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, throw it in the chat. Really, we want to make sure that you understand that the opportunity is now. Otherwise, you will miss on the ride up. Most people, when they think about wealth, they think about it in dollars. But if you were to think about your wealth in terms of how much your Bitcoin gets you from a value perspective, everything deflates against Bitcoin. The value of the dollar deflates against Bitcoin. The value of your home deflates against Bitcoin. That means it's always going to take less of what Bitcoin you own to purchase assets in the future. In 2016, you'll notice that this house, this average price of a home, increases over time in dollars, in the dollar sense, but it goes down from a Bitcoin perspective. Now, there are a number of links in this video that are going to help you do a deep dive and understand exactly what Bitcoin does and why asset. But ultimately, what you need to know is that by placing your investment, your hard-earned work into Bitcoin as opposed to into a dollar, into an investment, you're giving yourself the ability to generate investment. What would you be a good starting solid investment if you were to put anything in today? So remember the rules for this series. The first rule is do the work, understand what the investment is. The second rule is stack sats. So a good starting solid investment is any investment. If you can only put $10 in a month, put $10 in a month. If you can put $10 in a week, put $10 in a week. Now we will talk about investment strategies. And the only strategy you need to put in place right now is dollar cost averaging. And that just means purchasing a certain amount very frequently, whether that's every day, every week, every month. All right. Never stop purchasing. I'll give you my personal Bitcoin thesis. I buy Bitcoin, I never sell it. I will never sell my Bitcoin. The reason why is imagine when you purchase a house. When you buy a home, are you going to sell it so that you can go down the street and buy coffee? Are you going to sell it so that you can invest in a business? No, you're going to borrow against it. You're going to take out a home equity line of credit and you're going to use that capital twice. It's going to be growing in your home, gaining equity. And now you can repurpose that, clone that dollar, repurpose it in whatever other endeavor you're doing. Bitcoin as an asset has matured. Before it was just a cyberpunk, it was internet money, it was this thing most people don't understand. Bitcoin is now institutionalized. I don't think you guys understand what's happening. Michigan State Pension Fund, $6.6 billion ETF investment into Bitcoin ETFs. Wisconsin is investing $160 million into Bitcoin ETFs. Let's see. Florida is telling people that they want to invest their pension funds into the Bitcoin ETF. Let's see. Who else is Venezuela as a nation is investing in Bitcoin. Ethiopia is mining Bitcoin. China's mining Bitcoin. Texas is one of the largest subsets of Bitcoin miners on the planet. When they say hash rate, that just means the actual compute power used to mine a Bitcoin. And a lot of that hash rate is right here in Texas, where I'm located. So it's not just humans and individuals. Oh, I have a little bit of Bitcoin here and there. BlackRock, which is the largest investment manager on the planet, they have about $11 trillion under management. They own 2% of the Bitcoin supply. And they got that starting in January, right? Every single day they buy more Bitcoin. That just means there's less Bitcoin for you to purchase. There is no time left for you to figure it out, wait for tomorrow. Oh, I need to get my check. I can't, I can't. There is nothing less. You do not need to worry about the intellectual work. Start purchasing Bitcoin now, do the work afterwards, and they'll meet on the back end while you're building value. This graph right here just shows you the Bitcoin inflows into the ETFs since January of this year. Yesterday alone, $870 million were purchased of Bitcoin, right? And those are institutions. Those are people that are buying those ETFs through one of those funds. Now, we got a couple questions. Government is basically telling us, without telling us, that they are going towards crypto. The government is the global economy is based off of debt, right? And so a debt-based economy requires you to borrow from the future in order to pay for today's expenses. So most of the government doesn't want you to ape into Bitcoin. They want you to put it into your 401k so that they can tax you in the future. But the beauty of Bitcoin, the reason why it's so powerful is that it's self-sovereign. You can own it yourself. You can send it across state lines, across nations lines with no bank, no intermediary, no counterparty risk, no one in the middle. That is why they don't want you to own Bitcoin outright. They want you to put it in an ETF so they can track it, right? What does the regulation mean for growth of Bitcoin? Can this slow growth? Nothing stops this train because Bitcoin is not tied to regulation. Bitcoin is an inflation against overregulation. It's a hedge against overregulation. It's a hedge against inflation, meaning when the US dollar goes down in value against other currencies, Bitcoin rises. Okay. So even if someone were to regulate Bitcoin, it's very difficult because how do you track it? You right now can download an app on your phone or in your browser. You can create a wallet and you can purchase Bitcoin. How does the government know that you own it? How does the government know who you send it to? They'd have to go into the blockchain ledger, figure out that address is associated with you. And now there are definitely ways to find you, but how do you find 60, 70 million people that are cryptocurrency holders in the United States right now? How do you track all of that, right? If you're looking to start purchasing Bitcoin right now, just go to Coinbase. It's the simplest UI, or Robinhood. If you have a Robinhood account, you can purchase it through Robinhood. I'm telling you Robinhood and Coinbase because that means when you purchase it on that platform, you're holding the actual Bitcoin itself and you can send it to yourself to another wallet in the future. If you buy a Bitcoin ETF, you have an IOU. You can never convert that into a Bitcoin unless you convert it into dollars, go somewhere else, and then buy the Bitcoin itself. When you purchase a Bitcoin ETF, you're only holding an IOU. Okay. You're losing out on some of the value of what Bitcoin provides. Just found out that buying Bitcoin fractions on apps like Robinhood isn't actually buying the coin. I'm not sure what that means. Whenever you purchase on an exchange, you don't necessarily have control over the asset, right? So there are levels to ownership. There is owning an IOU in the Bitcoin ETF, and that is on a brokerage account or in your 401k or in your IRA. There is owning the spot asset on an exchange. But because the exchange still holds custody of the coin, they have a lot of control over what happens. One of the key things about Coinbase is that once Bitcoin hits 100K, their volume is going to go through the roof. And you know what they do every once in a while is they just shut down trading. They say, oh, it's too much, or our servers are overloaded, and then you can't access anything on Coinbase, right? You can't sell your Bitcoin, you can't access it, you can't remove it, you can't buy anymore, you're shut down. So that's a negative to owning your assets on an exchange like Robinhood or Coinbase. But at the end of the day, that's the best entry point because it's an easy it's something you're familiar with in terms of how to purchase on a brokerage. Like if you were to purchase via Fidelity, and the UI is better than Fidelity would be. So unless you do the work, YouTube video of how to create a wallet and purchase it yourself, I will put in the description a couple of hardware wallets that I think are solid units, and then you can also get to that point as well. But ultimately, when you never, unless you literally go in and you say, okay, Bitcoin costs $73,000, $186 right now, you're always buying a fraction of a Bitcoin. Always, right? Like you're not purchasing one whole Bitcoin at one time. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't think, oh, I can buy one right now because they think they can't afford a Bitcoin. No, you may not be able to afford one Bitcoin all at once, but that one Bitcoin can be broken up into 100 million individual units called Satoshis. And you can purchase one of those Satoshis, right? $10 gets you however many Satoshis. So just get off zero. That is the point. Now, the reason why we really want to um, stay on top of this is because these are some of the biggest names in finance on Bloomberg, on um, CNBC, and they are all talking about what they predict the price of Bitcoin to be at a specific time in the future. Almost all of them believe that Bitcoin will be $1 million at the least by 2030. So we're talking about a 10x on your money in 6 years, right? Like there is no other asset that you can purchase that you could 10x your money. It just is not going to happen. So just real quick, I'm gonna these couple. So when she calls it a flight to safety, what she's saying is that when you do work, you go to work, you do a gig, you generate profits, you're taking your time and your energy, which equals your work, and you're converting that into dollars. Those dollars, the US government has the ability to debase. It's like saying today you wake up and your salary on an annual basis is $100,000 for doing 40 hours a week worth of work. Next year, when you wake up, 40 hours a week worth of work is only going to net you $97,000. The year after that, 93. The year after that, 84. The year after that, $80,000. That's what's happening to your purchasing power. It's slowly being eroded because the government prints more money. There can never be, looks like you couldn't hear the sound on that one, but basically, she's saying that during the banking crisis, this was when Silicon Valley Bank went down. This is when everybody was like, "Oh, I got to get my money out of the banks." The stock market took a crash. At the time that that happened, the stock market's going down. Banks are losing value. Bitcoin went from $18,000 to $30,000. And it's because it's a flight to safety. It is a hard asset. So when you create value in the world, you do work and you convert it into Bitcoin, you're able to save that value over a longer time frame than just placing it in dollars. Now, one of the things that I've heard and I've talked to a number of people about is, oh, I can purchase other assets. I can buy real estate. I can do this, that, and the other. But if you'll notice on this graph that we had seen earlier, the value of a house constantly goes up. So every year you're alive, you're going to have to put more money, create more value in order to create more dollars in order to purchase the same house. There's no reason why this exact same house keeps increasing in value when it has the same utility. And that is because the dollar itself is worth less. Whereas if you were to purchase in Bitcoin, you would ultimately have more value proposition. We're about 30 minutes in. I don't want to spend too much time on some of this stuff. What I want to do is make sure that everybody understands now is the time to purchase. If you do not purchase right now, you'll be looking back like, dang, I could have got it for cheaper. Dang, I could have got it for cheaper. Dang, I could have got it for cheaper. Ultimately, it right now, because you don't understand it, you are just a trader. You're looking to buy low and sell high. by the time this weekly series should be done, by the time we get to the end of the year, you should hopefully be a what we call a hodler. Hold on for deal life. And that just means that you're going to hold your Bitcoin forever and you're going to pass it down to your progeny so that they can borrow against it in order to live a good life and actually on follow through on the value that they want to create in the world. And yes, Bitcoin is considerably like buying Amazon in 2028 or buying Microsoft when it first came out. You know, if you could look back and purchase something that is guaranteed to go up 10, 20, 30x over the next 10, 20 years, and you don't have to do anything but purchase it, why wouldn't you get off of zero, right? So the first goal is to get off zero. The second goal is to get off zero understanding. You got to understand it as well. There were a couple other videos I wanted to play. I'm hoping this. Let me know if you can hear this. So it looks like you can't hear that, but what I'll do is I will place some of these links in the video. So basically, what Michael Saylor is saying, Michael Saylor is one of the foremost people in the industry. Uh, he's saying that at a certain point, Bitcoin is going to scale off. It's not going to grow at 40% per year like it's been doing on average for the last 15 years, right? It's going to slow off, and then you'll look at Bitcoin as an asset, and it'll be whatever the S&P 500 is doing, it'll be that plus 8%. Now he's talking 20 years in the future. Until it gets to that point, we're still in the exponential growth phase, right? So, yeah, I can send out the links. I'm also going to place them in the text in the description of the video as well, so you can click on them easily. Someone had asked, how can you sell? How do you borrow against it your Bitcoin without selling it? And yes, Bitcoin is considered pristine collateral. The reason why it's pristine collateral is because there is no counterparty risk. There's no liability on the other side of the asset, right? When a bank takes your dollars and then loans it out, once it takes your dollars, it has an asset, and then it's loaning it out. Actually, it has a liability because it's taking it on your behalf, and then it loans it out and uses that loan as an asset. And it does that over and over and over and over again. And the reason why you have bank crashes is because they overextend themselves, and you're at risk of counterparty risk because the bank could go under. That counterparty is that bank, and their credibility and viability matters when you're giving them your money. Bitcoin, because it cannot be hedged and because you do not need anyone else to own it or hold it or custody it or anything like that, there are financial instruments being built right now. Again, if you were to give Bitcoin an age, in actual years, it's about 15 years old. And it's a true adolescent. It might be like a in its pre-puberty ages. It's just growing up, which means it's being financialized, it's being institutionalized. So there are going to be Michael Saylor himself is changing his tech company to a Bitcoin bank. He now takes loans out on his company's balance sheet, buys Bitcoin, and places it in the company treasury. Look up the MicroStrategy stock. Over the last year, MicroStrategy has gone up 800%. Let's put it on the daily. 2024, January 2024. There we go. All the way up to today. That is 482%. Right? It's gone from $44 to $265. This is not because MicroStrategy itself is worth and done that much more in business, kind of like Nvidia has gone up because it's done so well in business. It's because he's placed Bitcoin on his balance sheets. And so now people look at his company like a 3x lever play on the price of Bitcoin. Okay? So that's what you should be doing with your own household income, your own household bank, your own household reserves. You place Bitcoin in it, and the value of your household goes up exponentially just because you have that in its treasury. So yeah, you are going to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin in the future. There are companies that do it now, but they'll charge you 14% interest, things like that. What's going to happen over time is there's going to be a plethora of options, and they'll compete for getting access to your Bitcoin. Some people will take your Bitcoin and then loan it out. Some people will say we never will loan out your money. But at the end of the day, there's going to be options. And so if you purchase enough right now, in the future, you'll then be able to create that value in the world that you really want to do just by using the Bitcoin equity line of credit play, as opposed to selling your time, which you're doing right now, and or selling assets, which you would do in the future. You need to do the work. So when I said do the work, that comes down to doing the financial work, looking at the budget. So Isaac is asking, what do you think about cash debt to invest in Bitcoin? If your financial books are in disarray, taking out more debt to get into Bitcoin does not make sense. Use cash flow, use free cash flow to do it. All right. When you get to a certain point, then you can free up that cash flow, pay down your debt. But if you are in a good financial place and you have a low interest debt facility, and I would say low interest, individually, low interest is anything under 10%, right? You're not a corporation. You're not getting MicroStrategy's getting like 0.5% interest on their loans. If you are in a good place, it's not financial advice, but you're talking about a 10% interest rate versus your money going up 100% on the other side. It kind of weighs itself out. It might be good. It might be a good strategy if you do the work, if you do the financial work. Again, I would not financial advice, but my opinion, do not use credit card debt to finance your Bitcoin purchase. It's a variable loan. It is high interest debt. You should be working harder to pay down that loan so you can free up more cash flow to buy more Bitcoin. Right? You buying Bitcoin. What's going to happen? What usually happens, because you start out as an individual who just speculates. You trade your time for the dollar, and then you trade the dollar for the Bitcoin so you can trade it back into more dollars. You're a speculator. You're just a trader, right? Buy low, sell high. If you are using high interest debt, what's likely going to happen is you're going to take the debt, buy the Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to go up. You're like, yeah, I'm winning. That debt's going to come due. And then you're not going to have the ability to sell at a timely fashion. Maybe Bitcoin takes a dip. It is very volatile. It dips below your purchasing power, and now you got to take that out in order to go finance your debt. So one thing people say is everybody gets Bitcoin at the price that they deserve. And that's just because you have to do the work in order to keep your Bitcoin. I had Bitcoin in 2020. I sold it because I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm trading. It went up. I made some money. Great. I didn't understand the trajectory of it, the exponential increase that is going to happen at least for the next 20 years on this asset, because it is just maturing. There are not as many people as you think who own Bitcoin. It is in the lexicon, and it's definitely not enough people in our community that own Bitcoin. Not just, oh, I bought some here, I have some in a wallet, I got a Coinbase account. No, I'm a Bitcoin investor. I own Bitcoin as an asset. It is on my financial books. I am constantly purchasing more. I understand it. I'm going to pass it off to my progeny. If you look at it as a get rich quick scheme, you will get a little bit rich and you will quickly give your Bitcoin to the next person who will never give it away. I, when I tell you, here's I maybe I should have started with this. Yes, you would create your own personal bank, just like they do with the cash value life insurance policies, just like you do with your real estate. It's basically income generating and equity generating. But I'm telling you now, Bitcoin and in the broader cryptocurrency market has created more millionaires and more wealth in the last 8 years than anything else you can fathom. When I tell you that the people in this industry are all 25 to 35, 40-year-old white males, there are some women, there are, but it's mostly young white males. I'm talking about young white males. You've been working your ass off for 20 years at this point, right? I know I have, right? I'm coming up on 40 next year. And I'm working my ass off. All they did was purchase, hodl, and then turn around and turn their lives to what they wanted to do. Because they got out of the rat race of accumulating cash, now they can get into their own marathon of creating value. So now they do whatever they want. They're traveling to Abu Dhabi for conferences. They're all over the world. They have a global network because Bitcoin is truly a global asset. And we have already missed out on a lot of wealth creation. We have, but it doesn't mean it's over. And if we want to look at ourselves 4 years from now, during the next US election, when Bitcoin decides to go from, call it 150,000 to 500,000 or 500,000 to a million, depending on how fast and far it runs this election cycle, it you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass when you're like, if only I bought even just a little bit back then, I'd be sitting pretty. So I use Bitcoin as a savings account. 70% of my wealth is in Bitcoin because nothing else keeps its value as much as that. It beats inflation, it beats any money market, it's beaten the market, the stock market, it's beaten real estate, right? When you think about a real estate, they say your house should double, the value of your house doubles every 7 years in real estate. But if you look at an actual mortgage and how much interest you pay across 30-year time frame, you're paying a ton of amount in interest. So it eats away at the actual equity you're getting out of that asset. Ultimately, everything, because it's all priced in dollars, is being debased away. You do not save as much value as you think you do in the stock market. The real inflation rate across the last, call it 4 years, is like 20%. Let's see if we can go to max. It's just a year. This is 2020. I gotta find the exact chart. But when you factor in the cost of housing, because the inflation numbers that the government actually gives you doesn't include a lot of serious cost, like gas and food and housing. A couple of those are not included in the numbers. But if you factor it all in, since COVID and before, the inflation rate has been like 24% annualized. Most people aren't doing that well in the stock market, right? Your money market is definitely not doing that much. Your house isn't generating 24% interest on average, but Bitcoin has done 45 every year on average, like clockwork, right? So it's like having a savings account with millions of dollars just sitting, but with Bitcoin. When banks look at your assets, they see what you have in value, Bitcoin. What's there, if you were to go to a bank and you would say, hey, I need you to green light me to purchase this house. Here are all my assets so you can calculate my debt to income ratio. Um, the value of your Bitcoin would be translated into dollars, and that dollar value would then be used as your debt to income calculation. So, because Bitcoin always goes up in dollar value over the long run, the one thing about Bitcoin is that it teaches you to think long term. So, I'm not talking about next year. I'm talking about you need to hold Bitcoin at least for 4 years. That is the shortest amount of time anyone should hold Bitcoin. If you were to do that, it's guaranteed to go up in dollar value, and that dollar value increase, yes, would increase your ability to, be looked at well at a bank. In what scenario would Bitcoin tank to zero? What's the worst case scenario? World War III. And I don't mean just like pockets of war that's going on right now. I'm talking about nuclear war. Everybody on the planet is bombing everybody else. That is the only case that Bitcoin goes to zero. And the reason why, and I'm telling you that certainty increased in the last 9 months. And the reason why it's so certain, because it's not just your cyberpunks and a couple of organizations who own Bitcoin right now. If you think about it, Michael Saylor calls Bitcoin digital Manhattan real estate. Manhattan real estate is the most valuable real estate on the planet, right? Outside of maybe Singapore's, but it's up there. Now, nation states, whole countries, whole entities own Bitcoin. They have tons of value locked up in Bitcoin. They have tons of companies mining Bitcoin. Their economies are now tied to Bitcoin. So their incentives are to keep it alive, right? And that's the beauty of Bitcoin. Once you do the work, you'll understand that the network gets stronger with more participants. It is the most secure computer network on the planet. It has never been hacked. It has never gone down, and it is the most decentralized computer system on the planet. There are nodes. You could run a node in your computer right now that would validate transactions for the Bitcoin network, that would do mining, and you would get Satoshis in return. There are whole nations doing exactly that, right? So, worst case scenario, you're least concerned with whether or not you can monetize your Bitcoin. You'd be out here dealing with nuclear fallout. One book you should definitely read if you guys are into learning exactly what books you want to read. Learning about this heavily is a book called where are you? It's called Thank God for Bitcoin. It's not that thick. It's not a bad read. It's written by a couple of different people. The Creation, Corruption, and Redemption of Money. And what it does is it tells you exactly how fiat currency came about. So fiat currency is really a new paradigm. Before that, there was commodity currency. Basically, we used a commodity. We used gold. We used silver. We used something that was tangible, real, lasted a long time, and had utility value. We used that for money. Then we moved to fiat currency. If you ever go to what the hell happened in 1971.com, you'll understand how the US government Nixon took us off the gold standard. So every dollar used to be backed by 31% gold. They took the gold requirement away. Now every dollar is backed by nothing but US Treasury bonds, and US Treasury bonds are created out of thin air. So our dollar is fiat. Fiat simply means by decree, because I say so. The government creates their own dollars, and you're supposed to trust it because they say so. I'm sure the book is on Audible. I'm absolutely positive they have some audiobooks for it. Bitcoin mining is heavy from a computer processing perspective, um, but nobody cares about how heavy it is anymore because AI is far more intense, and people actually want AI to happen. In terms of the thing about um, Bitcoin mining is that you could run a Bitcoin miner on your computer, your regular computer. The problem is, in order for the Bitcoin network to, it only creates one block every 10 minutes. And in order for that clock to stay consistently at 10 minutes, it increases or decreases its complexity of the mathematical equation you have to solve to get a Bitcoin, to mine a Bitcoin. It goes up when more people are trying, it goes down when less people are trying. So the more people who try it, the more complex the calculation is, the more processing power you need in order to win more rewards, win more blocks. So if you run it in your computer, you're not going to be as successful at um, computing the calculations necessary to win, like some of these organizations do. Bitcoin is energy. It's literally energy based money, but there are so many concepts that you have to understand in order to really understand the layers of why Bitcoin is valuable. We can't go into all of them today, but it is a political situation. It's about self property, right? Property rights. You own your own assets and no one can take it from you. A house, you got to pay taxes on it, even if you've paid off the bill. You don't pay taxes on Bitcoin unless you spend it. And there are places like the UAE just passed a law that said if you spend your Bitcoin, there will be no capital gains tax because it's money. How can you tax money, right? Um, you have to understand energy and how you take literal energy, you solve a computation. That computation creates a validation and a block, and then you're rewarded with a Bitcoin on the back end. All of that creates incentives so that the network exists for a long time. Uh, there are going to be made 21 million Bitcoin. That's their only that's that's as many as there will ever be made, 21 million. And the last Bitcoin will be mined in 2140. So we're talking far after we're dead, people will still be mining Bitcoin. People will still be using this as an asset. And if you say, okay, that's like 120 years from now, that's not a long time. Okay, but fiat currency hasn't been around that long. In fact, the new age fiat experiment started in 1970. Before that, it was gold backed money. And gold backed money has been around for 5,000 years, right? So, or commodity based money has been around for 5,000 years. So, we're worried about like something that might fall apart. There's enough uh, invested parties for everybody to want for this shit to continue. And I'm whatever extra money you have, go buy yourself some Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoin, go get yourself some more. It Do not wait, do not stop. Do it tonight. If you're on your phone, pull up download the Coinbase app right now and get your KYC done and upload your ID. Let them know that you're a United States citizen. Whatever the case is, do it right now. I guarantee you. Here's the thing that Bitcoin has done for me, intellectually and spiritually. I don't give a damn who's president. I don't care about inflation. I'm not chasing a newer car. I don't have to put on airs in front of anybody to make them feel like I'm better than this or better than that or worth this or worth that. Because at the end of the day, I create value in the world and I'm able to store that value in something that doesn't get debased. Because Bitcoin is such a great asset, I've given up on so many other things that I'd only purchased for consumption. I'm still on the iPhone 11, right? Like I may not buy another phone until this one falls off, literally. Because for what? What? That $1,000 I can turn into 5,000. I can turn into 20,000 by buying Bitcoin, right? Coffees, going out to the club, drinking, anything that you spend your money on that you could save and purchase Bitcoin in 3 months. 3 months. Everybody on this call it right now. I will give you $100 if you invest money right now and you do not gain and also gain, but also realize how valuable Bitcoin is. If you do not get what they call orange pilled, right? Red pill or blue pill, take it. Since the Bitcoin logo is orange, they call it getting orange pilled. If you're not orange pilled by the end of this year and your investment has not increased in value, I will give you $100. I do want to make you feel the sense of urgency. I absolutely want you to feel the sense of urgency because when I tell you there are people fucking lapping you right now, they're lapping us. I'm not where I want to be from a Satoshi level. I'm still stacking sats. They are lapping us. BlackRock purchased $870 million worth of Bitcoin yesterday. Yesterday. Right? You might trade in your phone for an iPhone 3. Just go back in the past, right? Like no, why am I spending money on things that don't increase in value? You know, it's worth the sacrifice because if you do it for long enough, you'll look up and you'll be like, you know what? I have such a foundation. Now I can say no to that bullshit. I can say no to that bullshit. I can say no to that. I can chase this dream instead of chasing this cash dream. I can do all these things that allow me to give my kids a better leg up, right? We telling them go to college, spend 100 grand going to college. Yo, put that money in Bitcoin, let it sit till they're 18, teach them how to run a business, teach them about financial literacy, and then give them the choice, right? There will be at some point a talk about how AI is going to change everything, but that's for another day. You can look at yourself, you can look at your past self and be like, why didn't I? Why didn't I? Why didn't I? Why didn't I? That's all the more reason to just go ahead and start right now. Right. So it's not a get rich quick scheme, but Bitcoin has a get rich quick cycle. Okay. Bitcoin has a 4-year cycle. Every 4 years, the difficulty required to mine a block doubles. And so the amount of blocks that are able to be created on any given day is cut in half. So on April 19th, 2024, there were 900 Bitcoin mined every single day. On April 20th, 2024, that dropped down to 450 Bitcoin every single day. That halving happens every 4 years. So in 4 years, 450 is going to go down to 225. And it'll just keep halving all the way out until 2,140. Okay. After that halving, there's about 6 months of just sideways price action where Bitcoin sideways for the longest period of time, right? So if we're looking here, let's close this out. November, March. So this is the ETF. This range right here, this growth factor was 84% gain. It went from 39,000 to 71,000. It doubled basically in value because people were like, oh, all the institutions are going to be able to buy Bitcoin now because the ETFs had dropped on January 1st. Okay. After that, it poked sideways. And then April 2024, which is about right here, is the halving. Usually what happens in the Bitcoin cycle is it goes sideways for about 6 months until it gets to the US election. And then just like we saw earlier, right after the election, Bitcoin runs up. runs up, and then people FOMO in, and it gets higher and higher and higher. And honestly, last cycle, Bitcoin probably should have got higher than it did, but there was I don't know if you guys remember the FTX debacle, Luna debacle. Basically, it was these cryptocurrency platforms that lost all their money in like a day. And so everybody was out, Bitcoin crashed, all of that. So it actually lost steam halfway through its run up. And so it had to run up again. So if we take that into account, Bitcoin really should have hit close to $100,000 last cycle. It's going to catch up this cycle. So we're starting at 72 today. It's going to go to $1.50 minimum, right? It's going to go to 100. In my opinion, it'll hit 100 before the end of the year. As soon as the election, as soon as the election happens, that week, Bitcoin will probably gain $10,000 because now the uncertainty is gone. People are waiting to invest both in the stock market and assets and Bitcoin. They're waiting to release capital until there's certainty on who is going to lead the United States for the next 4 years. And it doesn't matter who, right? It does not matter. I do not give a shit about blue versus red anymore because all of them spend money, which debases my dollar, which means I get poorer just by being an American and holding US dollars. It doesn't matter if you spend it on entitlements. It doesn't matter if you spend it on tax cuts. It doesn't matter if you spend it on military. It doesn't matter if you spend it on immigration. You're spending the money by creating it out of thin air, which debases my currency. So I buy Bitcoin, right? But given the cycle, no matter what happens, no matter who wins, I'm going to wake up happy than a motherfucker because my investment is going to skyrocket. Is there any chatter of Bitcoin dropping below 72 again before the election? If you guys want to really like chart read, Bitcoin was at. I should do this on the weekly. Bitcoin has been between $70,000 and the lowest was $48,000. This was the trend line for 6 months since March of 2024. Bitcoin did this for 6 months, up and down and up and down and up and down. And everybody who looks at this that's new to it, it's like, that's volatile. It was at 70. Now it's at 50. Now it's at 60. Now it's at 40. That's volatile. But that's just a range, and it's a range of 30%. 30% is easy money for Bitcoin. It's not, that's something you're going to have to stomach, which is why you have to wait 4 years. Instead of looking, oh, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Don't worry about it. Just buy more when it gets down. So it went in this range for 6 months, and only on October 14th did it pop out of that range. It came back and tested the next week, and now it's going back up again. That's it. Maybe we'll go back down to 64. Maybe. But who cares? Who cares? Buy it now. If it goes down to 64, buy some more. You're worried about it in a dollar sense. Get off of zero. Buy more Satoshis. You need as much as possible, as soon as possible. Because when it hits 90, you're going to be like, oh, man, I should have bought it at 72. If we purchase 1K by the end of the year, you could gain 30K. No. That'd be a 30X. It's not going to 30X. It'll double or triple. You might get 3K. Probably not by the end of the year. We're talking a 50% gain. My expectation is that it's going to hit. It's probably going to do something like this. Like this is December. The end of the year is about right here. So it's probably going to do something like this right after the election. Something like that. So you're talking, by January, it'll be up here in the hundreds. By the end of December, though, it'll probably tap 100 and then fall. because $100,000 is a very hard psychological number. And so once it gets that way, there's going to be a lot of people that just take profits and it's going to drop. Once it gets above $100,000, then you're going to have a ton of people who now, because it's going to be all over mainstream media. Every news channel is going to say Bitcoin just hit $100,000. And so now everybody and their mom is going to be going on the Coinbase trying to purchase Bitcoin for the first time, which is going to send it from whatever it was below 100,000 to 150. So it is a psychological game, but literally all Bitcoin's gains are in the 365-day period of its 6 months that starts 6 months after its halving cycle. This is where the most explosive gains will occur. Okay, and there's no other asset that you can own today that's going to get you a 3x, a 2x, you know, in the next 6 months to a year. Now, again, I only say that to show you short-term price action. Your goal should to get as many as you can right now so that you see it go up and you know its value proposition. But as it's coming back down and you're purchasing it on its way back down, you're not like, oh, I'm missing out or I'm losing money. Why? Because you already purchased now. This $70,000 level is about to be the floor. We will never see another $50,000 Bitcoin. And at some point, we're never going to see another $70,000 Bitcoin, and so on and so forth as time goes on. So, you know, we've been on for about an hour now. We're going to talk more about market changes, things that are happening, like the BRICS nations, Russia and the BRICS nations. They are currently looking to create a brand new currency where the value of it's going to be based off of basket of commodities. And one of those commodities is going to be Bitcoin. The only way they can do that is by buying Bitcoin. They have to actually hold it so that they can base something off of it. So we're talking about, there's always going to be another FTX happening. There's always going to be another scam, which is why you should but FTX was counterparty risk. People gave their money, gave their assets to FTX, and then FTX went and played around with everybody's money and lied about it. That's why they're in jail and they owe $2 billion here and $3 billion there, all that type of stuff. So the goal is to stack your own Bitcoin in your own wallet. That's the end game. You have to take responsibility for your own wealth. This is the first wealth, right? You can protect your house, but at the end of the day, you're still paying taxes on the land. It's not really your house. You stop paying those taxes, they can take the house. This Bitcoin is yours. You have to protect it. You have to have sovereignty over it. You have to have responsibility for it. So if you connect your wallet to some dumb website and they rug you, they pull everything out of your account, you made that mistake. If you say, oh, look, there's this company that's saying they'll double my Bitcoin in 3 days, and you send them all your Bitcoin, guess what? Bye-bye Bitcoin. It's never coming back. You just got scammed. So this requires you to be super responsible. That's what I mean also when I say do the work. So yes, there's going to be another bad company. A lot of people have learned, right? A lot of people have learned counterparty risk. They figured out ways to not make sure FTX doesn't happen. But that doesn't mean that scams don't happen. It doesn't mean that people don't get hacked. And when I say Bitcoin's never been hacked, but people have, the network of Bitcoin has never been crashed. No one's ever been able to change the code by doing what they call a 51% attack. But you as an individual, you can have a wallet in a browser. That's what we call a hot wallet. That hot wallet, you connect to some application that you think is going to give you some money, and boom, that application drains your wallet dry, right? So you have to do your own research and know that the most secure Bitcoin is Bitcoin on a cold wallet. Where's my wallet? So some wallets look like little cell phones. This one looks like a zip drive, is what we call a ledger. It's cold because it is not connected to the internet until I connect it via Bluetooth. So if I were to keep my Bitcoin on this, I could put $1 million worth of Bitcoin, $300 million worth of Bitcoin, fly to Abu Dhabi, spend my Bitcoin there, right? That's what I mean by cold wallet. It is completely off the internet. We'll go into all these concepts as we get deeper down the orange rabbit hole. But ultimately, the goal is for you to A, stack your sats, B, understand it deeply so you never give your sats away, and then C, protect your Bitcoin so you can keep it and give it to the next generation. So with that, gentlemen, let me know if there are any questions you may have. Feel free to text me afterwards once the live ends. And this replay will be available on YouTube as well. So feel free to share it with any of your friends. We trying to build a community here. We trying to bring as many people along. Ultimately, my first thrust is into a black man. No Diddy, pause, all over that statement. My apologies. But my first goal is to make sure as many black men as possible catch up to this game, because these young white boys are eating our lunch. They are all getting filthy rich off of this because they are learning to sacrifice all the BS, go balls to the wall on it, and they're getting the gains. They're getting the gains. So how do you take your Bitcoin off of sites like Coinbase and put them on a flash drive? So it's not actually a flash drive. It looks like a flash drive. It's called a hardware wallet. And what you do is, and we can go over the tutorial on how to do this, but you're literally sending, it's like sending even on the Coinbase app itself, you have what they call a wallet. And every wallet has a private key. That's the keys to the castle. That's how you sign transactions and initiate transactions. And you have a public key. That public key is a very long digits and numbers address. It is a address. And you can put that address into Coinbase and send yourself your Bitcoin. And it happens for Bitcoin, it's a little bit long. It can happen anywhere between 10 minutes to an hour, depending on how robust the network is at that time. But it's faster than a wire, right? So learn the hard way how you take your Bitcoin. Well, next Saturday is going to be the next episode. I'm going to do this. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. I'm going to do it the same time every single week, all the way through the end of the year. In the meantime, I will start doing just update videos. They'll be on the YouTube channel. You can just like log in whenever you want to and say, okay, what's going on with the market? There's some news. What happened? Where's the Bitcoin price right now? Trying to keep you all abreast because I'm in this stuff every day, all day. Which one's more secure? They're both very secure, Coinbase or Robinhood. I would just go with whatever you either already have, just so you're getting to stacking sats as quickly as possible. They're both going to require you to do KYC, which means know your client. It just means putting your ID in and confirming that you're a U.S. citizen. I think Robinhood, I feel like Coinbase sometimes slows you down. Like you put money in and they're like, you can't buy anything yet, or that type of stuff. So Robinhood might be faster. Either way, they're both pretty secure. You don't have to worry about that. So, all right, let me see. Text me if you want to chat one-on-one. We'll set up some time. Start buying right now, literally, even if it's only $5. If you can, buy some every single day. Definitely buy something before next Tuesday, because next Tuesday the market's going to go wild. It just is. It happens every year, every election cycle. And think about it like this. Think about it. If I buy now, yes, you can buy Cash App. If you have Cash App, you can buy Bitcoin on Cash App as well. So if you buy now, right? Okay. Your initial goal, stack sats. Your second goal, get to 1 Bitcoin. If you don't have one already, get to 1. Because a $70,000 investment right now could be worth $1 million in 6 years. There's no other value proposition than that. There's nothing else is going to give you that. And it's I can't call it guaranteed, but once you start doing the work, you'll see the writing on the wall. And even if it doesn't hit $1 million, it'll hit 500,000, right? In 6 years, are you going to net $500,000 in profits working wherever you're going to be? No, because you got mad bills. You got to spend all your money everywhere to do something. So do it right now so that you can look back at yourself and be like, thank God I started. Thank God I got off zero. Thank God for Bitcoin. So that is it, gentlemen. If you guys have any questions, again, text me. I'm again, as I said, I'm in this all the time. All of the time. I'm a day trader as well. So it is what it is. I'm gonna call it a quits. We're gonna hopefully keep them to an hour next time. It'll be a little bit more. We kind of went all over the place, but we'll keep it more succinct next time. If you have any questions, hit me up, and I appreciate you guys. Bet someone just got off zero. I love it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll see you guys next Wednesday if you guys are on, and if not, I'll be checking in with you to make sure you got off zero. Period, point blank. So next week you actually have to BYO BTC. That's the goal to get in. Holla at me. Have a safe evening, and we will soon.